AI is not artificial intelligence. To me, AI is amplified imagination. My belief is that creativity thrives on tension, creativity thrives on disruption, and creativity thrives in terms of challenges or facing an enemy. Imperfections are really, really important, and I call it imperfect beauty because the imperfections that we humans have gives us the authentic feeling that we need to tell stories through our creativity.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Makes You Wonder with me, Oskar. I am sitting in my home studio here in Hoboken, New Jersey, and it is nighttime, so the light is a little different if you're coming back to this show. But if you're new to it, this is Makes You Wonder, a project from Wondercraft where we are exploring the future of human creativity in the age of AI. And today I have a very, very cool guest on the show. Guan Hin is a powerhouse in the creative industry. So I'm really excited to get into all kinds of discussions around creativity and technology and what the future holds for us. He is currently serving as a regional director of the One Club for Creativity in APAC, a organization, a nonprofit that also exists over here in New York. I think it even got started here. It oversees it over in Asia, which is really, really cool. He was previously the creative chairman of BBDO Singapore. He was also the founder of TGH Collective, which is a boutique agency that brought his rather innovative vision to life across numerous global brands that he's been working with. And he's really not only a master of crafting creative ideas, which he also talks a lot about how to really do in his book Collide, we're going to talk about as well. You should check out that book in the show notes already. It's fantastic. But he's also collaborator at heart. And he's been working with some of the most prestigious global networks, including JWT, Saatchi & Saatchi, and Leo Burnett. His influence is far beyond these roles, though, because he's also recognized as globally as a jury president for pretty much all the creative awards out there. Cannes Lions, D&AD, The One Show, and is also the head of the jury for the Asia Pacific Effies. And he's a sought-after thought leader, regularly speaking at conventions like Spikes Asia, AdFest, and Cannes Lions, sharing insights into the future of creativity and innovation. So what other better guest than Guan on Makes You Wonder? And I thought a lot of things that makes me wonder that we're going to get into around his creativity and his journey. And also beyond his impressive accolades, right? Guan has dedicated to really nurture the next generation of creative minds, from setting up Singapore's first student awards to training young talents at events like the One Show in China, in the Spikes Asia Young Academy. He's also very passionate about mentoring, as he is about his creative work. And I can go on here. He also talks about the stories of going and speaking and meeting the creative industries in places like Mongolia and Bangladesh, who are quite emerging markets in the creative industry. But learning from them and their human stories and their culture and heritage is really, really inspiring to listen to. So today we're diving deep in with Guan on his journey, his creative philosophy, his fantastic book Collide, and his vision for the future of creativity and AI. And I specifically and especially love his definition of AI, which I'm carrying with me. It might even be the title of this episode, so we'll see. Without further ado, welcome Guan to the show. Guan, welcome to Makes You Wonder. I'm so excited to have you on. And good morning. You're in Singapore, right?
Yes, I'm in Singapore right now, bright and sunny.
Bright and sunny, and a beautiful Thursday morning. We just heard your fantastic background, and excited to have you on and talk about your journey here. And I maybe want to start there. You've had some absolute pivotal roles in the creative industry across APAC, and as a world leader in creativity. Can you share a bit about what sparked your initial love for creativity and how you get you started on your career?
Yeah, sounds great. My journey in creativity started in a place of curiosity. I was born into a family of doctors, and my mom is a doctor. I mean, she had a clinic named after my brother and I. And my father is also a doctor, but he's the most famous doctor in the family. He has a disease named after him called the Tay syndrome. My brother has
Wow.
also a clinic too. And for me, I'm sort of the black sheep of the family. I couldn't study. I think at the time, probably I had ADHD. I couldn't focus. It was my mind's all over the place. But the great thing was I loved to draw, and drawing was my passion. And I think that whole jump started my career in creativity, and how that jump started my career in terms of understanding how the creative mind works. It was a bit rebellious at that time because, 30 years ago in Singapore, or mostly around the world, people were, everybody's ambition, or my parents' ambition as an Asian background, is to become a doctor, become a lawyer, a high paying job. And what would a career in art be? And that's where I discovered advertising along the way. So I'm really, really happy to be in this field for the last a few decades.
Amazing. I mean, so I mean, you've been in the industry for so long, right? You worked through the biggest kind of technological paradigms of the past 30 years, from the dot com to, I don't know, blogging, to the iPhone, user generated content when that was the biggest thing, right? Social media, the rise of influence, and now AI. How has your view of creativity from that early start kind of evolved throughout the years?
It's interesting. When I was in school at Arts and College of Design, we were still doing typography through
Mm.
cutting and cow glue. And smelling cow glue, you can get very, very high. And that was the time where Apple Mac launched typography on a Mac, and everybody was like shocked, like what's going to happen in the future. So I think creativity and technology has found a way in working in collaboration with each other. In the early days, right, we harnessed the internet for great storytelling, right, for information. I mean, encyclopedias are dead because now we go into internet to do search. Social media has opened up a new way of people, a new media for individuals sharing their own stories, contributing, and brands have also become, open dialogue with their consumers through conversations. And now with AI, right? Now we have the tools to create personalized, immersive experience, and also a process that makes things faster and more efficient. At the same time, I think part of creativity has evolved into constant adaptation of these changes. I think for me, it's about colliding the old insights, the basic creativity, and colliding with new technology that we're facing right now to stay relevant in the ever-changing world we live in.
Talk a little bit about the creativity you started, because I love that. Typography is kind of, I don't know, it's an art that I feel very strongly about. I have a bunch of like coffee table books about that. I really enjoy it. I also coincidentally had a funny story because I had a chief creative officer of Whaler on the show a couple of months ago, and he recalled a story from when he interviewed for his first advertising job, that he had to write the perfect Helvetica by hand,
Mhm. Oh wow.
which I thought was amazing. But what was it like starting out in the creative field? Were you did you have a knack for art, and was it writing, or what was the art form that you kind of found your calling with that early?
A really, really good question, Oscar. So I'm from a art background, not from the writer's background. And when I started my creativity, it was pure copying comic books. It was pure. Um, there was a time when Star Wars also became a big hit, and science fiction, special effects was growing in numbers, and everybody's really excited. So I think on those years, I think the visual arts was really appealing to me. When I started in Art Center in College of Design in Pasadena, I then understood conceptual marketing for the first time, persuasive writing. So, when the two worlds collided, which was art and copy, that's where I really discovered the art of persuasion and creative. So, creative storytelling to solve a client's problem or to solve a marketing issue. And that, conceptual understanding in terms of trying to blend two familiar things to create something unfamiliar was really exciting for me to make sure that my work is relevant and relatable.
Oh, that's very cool. So, were there any? Did you have any specific creative influences that kind of pulled you into this? And like, how was that? How was that shaped your world? Did you have anyone that you looked up to specifically when you got started? What was your? Because usually there's something that pulls you in, and like you see that, oh, I can have a talent for this, and there's something you look up to and you aspire to do. What was that for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I worked with many agencies, right? So when I started, it was actually with Saatchi and Saatchi Singapore. In those days, I had a boss. Her name is Linda Locke. I'm not sure you're familiar. She's married to New French a while back. And from her, I learned about in terms of creating teamwork, being decisive in terms of how you are able to critique the work. And along the way, I worked in Saatchi and Saatchi Singapore when David Droger came in his early years. And that was quite inspiring for me because he put together a team that was so fantastic at that time. And I was an art director probably about 5 years into my experience. So I've learned a lot from the whole atmosphere. It's very competitive. And so we just grew by, outbeating each other in terms of conceptual design. And over the last few years, right, I've tried to become a better speaker. So Frederick Herrin, who is one of the top speakers in the creative field and is known for the creative explorer, he's also quite instrumental in shaping how creativity has evolved.
Let's talk about creativity because we are here to talk about the future of human creativity. But it's a big part about creativity is about leadership, right? And I'm always fascinated by that. I've been an agency side myself, but what I'm really curious about how agencies and how you really foster creativity. So as a leader in the creative industry, because you rose through the ranks, obviously, throughout your career, how do you really foster creativity within teams and encourage innovation? And I'm sure that's evolved throughout time as well. But yeah, what has been some of the kind of principles that you lived by to make sure that creativity within your team is so important in any company, but specifically, obviously, for when you're always looking to challenge and come up with new ideas for clients in a creative agency. So what are some of those leadership principles that you've kind of held on to?
When people are most creative when they feel more comfortable. People are much more creative when they feel a bit more relaxed and there is an environment of nurturing. So for me, leading a creative team is about being a bit more humble and about encouraging them to ask as many questions as possible. I'm not the type of boss that sort of boss around people. I'm the type of boss that really encourages collaboration. And I think today's world, right? I mean, we live with a rich culture, diversity. I think having that richness helps to spark different ideas, especially when you have different viewpoints. So for me, it's about trying to create conflict, creative conflict with my team to make sure that we sparked all the right questions and to also come up with very surprising and interesting solutions. Obviously, it requires people to be curious, it requires people to be passionate, and it requires people to give me ideas that maybe I've not seen before. And that is something that, when you come up with interesting ideas, people fail, right? I mean, you don't come up with simple, predictable ideas and realize that it's going to be good. Sometimes some of the good ideas you do not realize is good until you come up with that, you tested it before. And I think the great ideas make you laugh. I mean, create some emotion. So I think great creativity within the team, hopefully we can laugh at the ideas, we can throw the ideas, we can bring back the ideas. It's having a great conversation and a bond with your creative team.
So is that a method that collaboration is that sitting in? But describe the scene. What is an ultimate kind of creative work environment that you want to create? Are there specific? I mean, that's a method, right? And you said creative conflict there, which I think is interesting. Trying to find some sort of, I guess, some traction with ideas and be able to challenge each other to kind of evolve the idea together, I guess. But yeah, describe that to me, because that fascinates me. Like, how do you set that up? How many people, is in a team ideally for this to be according to you?
So for me, the ideal team is probably 3 to 4. Not too many, because I think when you have too many, I think there's too many consensus and community. I mean, you want to please too many people, right? I think the environment is really important. So I think when we brainstorm, we need to go to a different environment every single time. So whether it's a coffee shop, when you go for beach or you go for a walk together and do something different. I think when we are in a different environment, it sparks our it brings back different experiences, and hopefully the environment helps to loosen the loosen the field for people to share ideas. The third, I think the other most important thing is that you can't criticize too easily, or you can't put down the ideas too easily, too hard. So I think people need to talk. So maybe you can share a joke, right? Or they can talk about politics. I think the ideas will come much later when you have a lot of fun generating different content. So I think it's about creating content that is interesting in the first place, right? So the most important thing is that, if the teams kind of bored with their lives, or the teams have not got the experience, it's really, really tough to come up with ideas. And again, when people come with different ideas about, when we talk about creative conflict, so one person could be talking about fishing, right? And yet another person could be talking about, I don't know, mountain climbing. And this, I mean, we could be brainstorming on a project that might be unrelated. But I don't know, something along the line sort of connects in some way. And once we find some connection, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I like that. And it's interesting with the dynamic. So it's a different location to bring out more experiences out of people. And obviously you said 3, 4. It kind of reminds me of Jeff Bezos and Amazon. They like, you should have team sizes that can share a pizza. That's always something that stuck with me, which is quite interesting. I mean, there must come pressure with that too, right? So how do you
Yes.
balance the business side of creativity with that artistic side? Sometimes you probably have a tough deadline. Or have you encountered moments where those two worlds clash a lot? I mean,
Yes,
creativity
definitely.
and the business side and the creativity side.
What's really interesting for me, especially as a creative person, and I'm sure for all creative people, having deadlines allows you to really spark more ideas. I think it's usually the deadlines that actually people are more pressured to come up with better ideas. I don't know about you, but that's what happens to me. So when you have too much time, it really, I mean, we kind of talk around, there's a lot of BS around, we just go in circles. But when there's a deadline, or when there's a lot of pressure, I think when the heat is on, things starts to, spark, or things starts to really get intense. The other thing too, right? I mean, obviously we tap into our lives. We also tap into a lot of the award shows, winners, right? They might, I mean, going through some of them. I'm not talking about, stealing ideas. It's about finding some inspiration, because they all face the same issue, where, we're trying to sell the car, we're trying to sell, a camera. I mean, the benefits are quite similar, and the approach in terms of the strategic thinking is quite important. So I think in terms of coming up with the ideas, having a great planner is very important too, because they also provide some great insights, some deep, rich insights that help to spark a lot of ideas. And sometimes the strategic idea is the big idea too. So I think a lot of these things help.
Yeah, this is so fun, because I can just draw. I mean, in comparison to what I'm doing now, I'm sitting. I work alone quite a bit. We're quite scattered as a team at Wondercraft, and the idea of like creating these, I need to move around and be in different environments to have ideas come up, and when we're writing or whatever we're doing. I think everyone has, you have to nurture creativity as an entrepreneur in so many different ways. And but that all resonates with me so much, and how you kind of create the ideal, I guess, environment for ideas to really spark and welcome them, as much as you can. But talking a little bit about how you navigate creativity, like what is the most significant shift you've seen or in the way that you approach creative projects today compared to when you started in the industry? The advertising industry must have changed quite a bit, at least how you work with brands and how how their expectations might have changed throughout the course of time. Is there a difference between how you approach projects when you got started and how that happens today? Is it faster paced, or what's the big change that you've seen throughout your career?
Yes, obviously everything is much faster. Everything is much cheaper. Everything is much, there's a lot of decision makers in the process. So I think as we evolve, right? I mean, things needs to be cheaper, faster, and more affordable. And I think it's important to be much more collaborative, not just within the agency, but with clients, and not only just with clients, with our third party vendors, whether it's producing a film, whether it's also putting together a website. I think having a great collaborative discussion together as a team right from the beginning is really, really important before any project starts, right? Because everyone has a part to play today. I don't think creativity is belongs. Sorry, I don't think creative solution just should just depend on the creative department. Sometimes our clients are very, very creative too. So I think having a very listening to another during conversations is important, not to put people down, but to be able to find some nuggets. I think it's also very important to blend, obviously the art and the science. Today, the data we've got is so rich, right? And now with AI, I mean, they're able to execute things that we've never thought about. So having these tools, having, hopefully a great insight, human insight, enables us to come up with ideas a lot faster and richer. At the same time, I feel that we need to balance the emotional story and strategic precision and data into one complete story, because I've seen a lot of creative work that is so emotional, but there's no clarity or credibility. At the same time, there's a lot of data and credibility, but it lacks emotion. So I think the collision between storytelling and data needs to needs to be in perfect harmony, which is very tough to do sometimes.
I mean, that's beautifully put, though. So there's, it kind of comes to this idea that everything is faster, and we have more data points to work on. So the planning aspect of what you do, you have a bigger wealth of information to pull from, and then you have to have this emotional, artistic expression to kind of back that up. So you need both of those to really hit it home. It sounds like that fascinates me, because in a world where it's brands and agencies and any creative have more of those things available to them at a cheaper cost, what actually matters is kind of the idea itself, or the I guess the taste
Mhm.
of what you're finally putting together, right? Because
Yep,
that
exactly.
requires that being able to draw the right conclusions from the data that you have and find the right expression for that, for it to really hit home with other humans, I'm assuming. That always brings me a lot of joy, because then that means that maybe machines, we're not so replaceable. Human creativity is such an important part of how we use technology for the future, and how we put it to good use, as part of our toolkit. You are also a author of a fantastic book, called Collide. That we're gonna have, everyone can check it out in the show notes as well, so they can explore that further. But I really like this because you explore this idea, what you're already talked about a little bit, about the creative conflict as a kind of this catalyst for innovation, right? Can you share how this concept of colliding ideas came to be central in your work? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but it seems like such a center part of how you bring these worlds together, of business and creativity, and data and art, right? And how it all comes together. And yeah, tell us about the book and how that came to be, and what the concepts are here.
Yeah, I think the book came out from people asking me a very simple question. Number one, can you be creative? What is creativity? Things about how can you become more creative? And the usual answer that we get is, yeah, you got to think outside of the box, or you got to be different, or you got to, try and do things very original. I mean, all these things sounds really good, but it's really difficult, and it sounds very esoteric at the same time. So my book is quite precise. So the subtitle of Collide is about embracing conflict to boost creativity. So my belief is that creativity thrives on tension, creativity thrives on disruption, and creativity thrives in terms of challenges or facing an enemy. So earlier in my career, I've noticed that the best ideas come up from things that had disagreements, different perspective, or even failures, right? And these collisions sort of force us to come up with interesting storylines, question assumptions, and push boundaries that redefine and transform our ideas too. So I think by embracing conflict, I think we kind of allow diverse perspective. We also allow things to come together by creating, for example, taking two familiar things and smashing it to come up with something unfamiliar. I think this simple concept is relevant in how we face today, right? Because when we come up with so original a concept that people cannot relate to, there is no connection. So finding something familiar or a human insight or a thing that people can relate to and smashing it together with something else creates a good piece of communication that is relatable and relevant at the same time.
Are there any brands or creatives that you think do this exceptionally well? Is it easy to put that into motion? Like your book is kind of a recipe for this, right? How you set this up. How easy is it to replicate that consistently? Is that possible? Is that, or do you have to run into, do you have to be brave enough to kind of fail on this creative journey as well, and learn from it?
I think obviously it takes a long time to read the book, and the book has there's a sort of different structures and different stories, different ideas. But the one thing I can share with you to make things simple is to actually have maybe two lists, right? So, for example, how do you create fun in the workplace? Let's say that's the problem you need to solve. So, on one side of the list, you create all the different things that you find in the workplace, or the things that you do. On the right side, you create all the things that you enjoy having fun. I think the magic lies in finding the right connection. For example, if you want to make the seating more fun in the workplace, right? And when you talk about how you enjoy fun while you're seating, perhaps you could make the seats into a swing. So it's about taking things that maybe belong in two separate worlds and finding the right connection that people did not notice to create something new and unique that people, when you reveal the ideas, you'll be, aha, I wish I've thought of it, because you're blending the two things that's quite familiar.
That's good tip. Again, we're gonna have a link in the show notes for everyone to check out the book. I really love the concept and being so specific about how people can actually put it into good use, and I really enjoy that. Guan, let's talk a little bit about AI in the creative
Yeah.
process. We're stepping into this. We talked earlier about this journey of all the kind of technological shifts you have experienced in your career, and just the past years, right? There's been a lot of things happening, and things are spinning faster than ever, it feels like. And with AI, obviously, it's all around us now, and it's the development is really, really impactful. We can see that media is having a fun day talking about it a lot. It feels like it's a hype sometimes. Although I feel like this year, quite rapidly, it's settling down a little bit, and people are talking about how they apply it and how they can actually use it, even though it's a buzzword. But how has AI impacted the way that you work or think about creativity in the industry that you're in? How has the journey been since I mean, AI has been around us for a while now, but now it's kind of coming up to the surface a lot more. And also, I realize that AI as a concept is like saying digital media, right? It's a lot of different things. But if you look at generative AI and how it can be applied for a creative, as a tool. How has that impacted the work that you do?
You know, AI, as you mentioned, Oscar, has been around for many, many years. I think it only resurfaced when ChatGPT came out, probably 1.5 years ago right now. And what's interesting about it, and this is just my perspective, when you look at every movies, right, about, whether it's Terminator or a machine taking the world scenario, when the machine looks like a machine, actually, we're not frightened even though it looks evil, because we know where to shoot. I mean, or to kill, right? This machine, for example. But when AI takes into a form of a human, like a Terminator when it dresses like us, that's where it becomes really scary. So when ChatGPT came out with a large language model, the language, the way they mimic our humanness, the way they talk like us, in a way scares us. But at the same time, that's what makes it simple for us to use this AI tool. So I used to fear AI. I used to think, oh my God, it's going to take over my job. It's going to replicate everything. But I've come to realize after using some of the AI tools is that we need to have a conversation with these tools, right? For example, ChatGPT, when I use it, I don't tell them what to do, but you can prompt them in a way that creates the result that you're looking for. And sometimes, because they mimic the human language so well, some of the ideas I get are even better than the creatives that I hire. So it's about using AI in a way that gives us great insights to begin with because it's so efficient, it's so fast. It doesn't mean it's going to take over our jobs. It doesn't mean they'll come up with the right answers, but it's given me enough ideas to really pick the right ones and to really smash out in terms of what ideas that we can bring forward with. Obviously, we will have a lot of experiences, our life experiences, our real stories that create emotive storytelling. AI is able to hopefully, gather the data. So I think the world between the human emotional way of telling stories and finding information through AI, blending it or colliding will give us a much richer, efficient way of telling stories that's also much faster at the same time.
Yeah, how do you think the industry right now is approaching AI? Do you see that it's everyone's in agreement on how you should apply AI in the creative process? You were previously chairman of BBDO. You are involved with a lot of the agencies down in APAC through your work now. What's the conversation going? Is this a way of, are we past the discussion of this is a fearful AI and it can't replace, we should block it, or are we embracing AI in the creative process in different ways?
I think the answer to me is very simple. I think we need to embrace it. I think the more we fight it, the more difficult it gets. And by embracing, I don't mean, in terms of relying on AI. I think we as humans need to direct AI. We as humans need to be editors in what AI produces. Because sometimes they might not get it right? Sometimes they might give you an answer that might be, but that be in contrast with what you're looking for. So I feel that, used in the right way, obviously like a tool, it allows creative to experiment, prototype, and really move things a lot faster. I think the tools don't replace creativity, Oscar. I think they empower us to explore new concepts and bring to life ideas that were not thought of. Besides AI, technologies like AR, VR, these things create these immersive experiences that, long time ago through a print or TV, consumers are not able to feel. So I think with technology coming in, whether it's a VR glasses in the future, it will help us to be more creative, but we need to adapt our ideas to fit these technologies and these creative platforms.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's fascinating throughout. Obviously our company now is just a AI powered Wondercraft is. In the way that have had so many fantastic conversations throughout this project makes you wonder where we're just trying to decipher what the future might look like. And a big part of why we started this project was kind of to help people understand that this is still a tool that is being kind of developed right in front of our eyes in many ways, right? Even OpenAI and Sam Altman, they don't really know what's beyond the next iteration of what they're working on. It's happening quite quickly, but it's a great way to kind of embrace it now and start using it. And what I've learned throughout my conversations and our own work with our own users, we now have 75,000 users all in over 50 countries around the world, is that the human creativity is still the center of everything that you're doing, to really get the output that you need. And even so, that you need more of a diverse background. The bigger, the more of an interesting background you have as a person, the better you are at asking the right questions for AI, which is something I've learned as well, which fascinates me. So it's like, it's really a very new but powerful tool that, of course, comes with a lot of questions before you get into it. So once people, like you said yourself, once you start using different AI tools, whether that's ChatGPT or other generative models to create something, you learn quite quickly that it requires a lot of creative thought and work to get it right. And there's nothing that replaces you at all. It's just kind of, if you ask ChatGPT something, a silly question, it's just going to come up with something that is, that doesn't, just pulling from its past, and it's kind of collective knowledge that it has to pull from, but and with no other purpose than just giving you an answer quite randomly, right? So it's a big evolution there, which I think is quite fascinating. But how do you think? Is there a difference between how we look at AI all over the world? I mean, you're working with brands worldwide. Is there a difference in your there's a lot of discussions about AI in Europe and in the US, where regulations are quite different. In APAC, do you think there's a different discussion happening over there compared to other parts of the world in terms of AI in the creative industry?
I think the questions are all the same, Oscar. I mean, it's all about being ethical, is how you use it. Are we stealing from the artists? Are there copyright issues? I think they're all pretty much the same, issues going around the world. I think the most important thing is that we need to use it in the right way. Again, coming back to, the way we prompt things, right? So I think there's some software that uses it the right way. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what it is, but the images don't turn out as well as things like in Midjourney, where they sort of take from different sources. But I think whether it's the right way or the wrong way, the most important thing is that when you put together an AI powered creative, does it sort of stir an emotion? So until
Mm.
the day where AI has a soul, where
Right.
AI is able to, make decisions themselves and starts to become, a living, a living being, then that's where this conversation will be totally different. But we will still have the ultimate, power to really deliver something more emotional than what technology can provide, right? So if we, for example, is storytelling is all about emotions, right? And connecting it on a personal level. So coming back to creativity and and storytelling, right? It's finding the connection through the way we tell our stories using AI is kind of the way to go for me in creativity, because until you find the connection, you won't have anyone appreciating it. You can also tell an AI created photograph as opposed to a real photograph because of all the nuances, in terms of where, when you reconstruct a person's face, right? It's not that easy. You can spot some imperfections. In my book, imperfections are really, really important. And I call it imperfect beauty, which is a bit of a collision, because the imperfections that we humans have gives us the authentic feeling that we need to tell stories through our creativity. And because AI is too perfect, it makes it fake at the same time. So I think hopefully we have the upper edge on that.
No, that's quite beautiful as well, right? That's what makes the art piece sometimes, that it's the imperfections or
Hmm.
the slight nuances that AI just glances over and makes perfect instead.
Yep.
Looking ahead here to the future creativity in AI, I think there's. How do you think the industry evolves overall? I mean, do you see any trends with brands doing bringing more of these capabilities in house? Is there any fear of the creative industry not having that collaboration with brands anymore, or how do you see the next kind of 5 to 10 years evolve with technology? Is it still going to be um, is agencies going to play the same role as they have been in the creative industry together with brands? And what did that look like for you?
Well, this is a very tough, sensitive, and interesting question all at the same time, right? I think in the good old days, I mean, before all these new technology came out, I think advertising agency have really a stronghold in terms of what they have done, what I mean, the great creative ideas, and the media was quite limited, right? I mean, let's talk about TV, print, and stuff. I think the explosion came through the way we create work, right? Whether it's using computers and evolving to digital photography, and even through immersive technology, AR and VR. But at the same time, right, these fusion of technology needs to be integrated into how we tell our stories. But with all these things coming up, right, I think creativity has been democratized. Everyone is creative, Oscar.
Right.
So
Yeah. Right.
from my daughter who's 14 all the way to someone who's 80 years old, everyone is creative. And those days where when Instagram became a big hit, right? The clients would say, why do I need to pay a photographer when Instagram takes beautiful photographs? So I think technology has evolved in such a way that a lot of the executional skills have been taken away from the artists. I think that's key. But having the right picture or having the right composition is still key, because putting together this perfect picture, I'm sorry, the picture that we want is still difficult to get. So I feel that with technology, we have the opportunity to be even more creative, but we need to adapt into all the new platforms and to be able to tell different stories. So, social media stories isn't a beginning, a middle, and the end. The beginning, middle, and end is a traditional, 60-second commercial. So even the way stories have evolved over time.
With brands today and startups, you can't just be a brand doing one thing anymore. You're also a media company. You have to be a kind of a media company. You have to create stories. And what you said earlier about having that authenticity in everything that you do that then takes different expressions is so important. So I kind of set you up on that question, because I believe the future is extremely bright in the creative industry, because what I think will matter is that taste, and what is that, who can decide what is that best image or expression of this idea that connects again the data and the insight with that artistic expression to make the storytelling really resonate with an audience and make a brand stand out next to many other brands. And I think that really really matters. And again, I keep coming back to that kind of an optimistic future view of human creativity that way. And you see that in other expressions too. Like you said, everyone has had once everyone had a digital camera, and once everyone had a um, we started doing computer graphics for movies that just evolved the movie industry, and all of a sudden we can do these incredible CGI movies that makes you feel like you're there, and it's just evolving the way that we tell stories, I guess. Talking about, you mentioned their younger generations and how they adopt new technologies. You have a 14-year-old, so you know
Yep.
exactly that how how they are so digitally native. Obviously, I have a
Yes.
12-year-old sitting in the other room. It's teaching me about things. I'm feeling older and older every day.
Yep.
um, but how might how might the concept of creativity shift for future generations, you think, who will grow up with AI as part of their everyday lives? What do you think? What does your 14-year-old daughter, how does she express her artistic or creativity, and what do you think will happen to the next generation alpha, growing up with this kind of technology?
As technology evolve, the human race evolves, right? So, for example, my daughter, he doesn't have any baggage that we had. So because we lived through, this whole generation of, for example, social media to, through all the different technology, to her, it's already common. It's really ordinary. So what we thought were moving forward, their starting point is much further ahead than ours. So she types faster than me. She knows where to, how to do a video really quickly. She knows what filter to use. The way she talks to her friends is different. So I feel that with the next generation, right, they do not have the baggage that probably we used to think. And creativity will evolve in a very different way which we might not understand. I mean, a lot of these YouTubers or influencers have come up with content that I think it's absolutely ridiculous or stupid. But look at the views, look at the followers they have. I mean, everyone has created a different niche for themselves. So I think with the new creative people, technology is still something that's being used, but it's invisible. Oscar, it's invisible. I mean, they don't say that, hey, I'm using this technology. You just use it, and when technology becomes invisible, and then what they are telling is still an emotional way to connect with the audience. So whether it's a story, whether it's just sharing with you how to brush your teeth, or sharing their perspective, or how they dance, it's the stories they tell that makes a big difference. And I think using new technology will expand their possibilities. And for me, just want to say, AI is not artificial intelligence. To me, AI is imagination, amplified imagination. Because with your imagination, AI is able to amplify, enhance, and really grow what you thought was a small idea into a bigger idea if you use it in the right way.
That's amazing. I like that. That's a great definition of AI. I prefer that. I'm going to start using that a lot more. That's more accurate
Yeah.
because I think we're growing tired of artificial intelligence as a concept
Yeah.
already in many
So,
ways.
Oscar, this is a bit of collide in terms of the making, right? So I'm just
Right.
taking the same word that people are familiar with, but giving new meaning by sharing what I feel it is, and which is, coming back to the basic, which is about imagination. Creativity is imagination, and AI is about amplifying and enhancing. So I think hopefully, with what we're experiencing today, when I don't think we should fight it, we should quickly adapt it, we should learn as much as possible. And I think it's reverse mentorship. So I think now I'm getting lessons from my daughter. I'm actually mentoring some young people, and they're teaching me how to, do prompts on Mid Journey. It's interesting, right? You think, the older you grow, the more you know. I think it's the opposite. I think the older you grow, the more baggage you have to throw away, because when you learn a new skill, you really have to adapt quickly and really, put away your misconception and really embrace what is ahead of us.
To unlearn a little bit of your
Yes.
old ways. Yeah, I think that's part of the beginner's mindset, that
Yeah.
sometimes is such a relief to be a beginner at something and learn anew. I think that's quite beautiful as well. Guan, I do want to talk a little bit about your work that you're doing now, because it's talking about youth. I know that's a big part of this, and also emerging markets in APAC that I'm really, really curious about. You are the regional director for the One Club for Creativity. So, I mean, who better than you to talk about creativity, obviously. But yeah, tell us about the work that you're doing now and how this kind of relates to the creative industry in these emerging markets and working with youth and young creatives coming up right now. It sounds like such fascinating work. Tell us about that work that you're doing and your mission over there.
So, when I wrote the book on Collide, right, it's opened a lot of doors for me to speak to different countries. So I've spoken in Kathmandu, Nepal. I've spoken in Mongolia. I've spoken in Bangladesh. So I think it's opened a lot of doors in places that might not be thriving creatively, but they're eager to learn, right? So the One Club for Creativity, based in New York, has started a show actually in Asia, actually for a very long time, called One Show China, but they recently evolved into One Asia, which happened a few years ago. And so we recently finished an award in Manila, and that brought together creators from many different regional countries to judge the show. At the same time, we've also partnered with Adobe Magazine to create some master classes for the creative community in Manila. And we've also we've partnered this convention, DigiCon, to also bring in some international speakers. So I think the One Club's mission is really, really important, which is we're a nonprofit organization. We want to cultivate learning. We want to build a creative community. There are many, many programs like the Portfolio Night that was just recently launched, which is having mentors to look at up and coming students' portfolio, and it's a bit like speed dating. So you go around the table after a few minutes, seeing as many creative directors, and hopefully land a great job in one of the agencies. So initiatives like this helps young creative to be inspired. It helps obviously the older generation to connect with the younger generation, and all these programs hopefully will become much more interesting in APAC. So my task is try and adapt lots of global initiatives and bring in some for the APAC region, and to be able to share and connect and teach, but also inspire and celebrate the best work in Asia Pacific.
It sounds like very rewarding work. And how are you traveling a lot over the region? Is that a big part of having that presence and speaking as you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think traveling is definitely a good way to connect, right? I mean, virtually it's since COVID, it's become part of our working culture to do things virtually. But traveling, meeting people, gaining experiences, I think there's no better way than to learn and grow at the same time.
Talk to us a little bit about what is the creative industry look like in Mongolia, for instance? Is there a big presence of is there a vibrant kind of emerging industry growing there? What does it look like? Are there domestic brands and agencies that are evolving and looking for inspiration elsewhere, or what's the situation like over there?
So I was in Mongolia less than a month ago. I was invited by the Mongolia Marketing Association, and this conference is called SMART, SMART, and they have it every single year. I was surprised, right? I mean, my impression of Mongolia was, obviously with the camels, with the Tibetan sort of way of living and stuff like that. But I was blown away by their advancement. I think they're eager and hunger to grow in terms of how to create work that is of a global or regional level. The people were also, in a way, emerging from the point of not as sophisticated. Obviously, they're still using, some of the older methods of marketing. I think creativity is something that is still a powerful tool in terms of how we tell stories that they are still learning. So during the conference, there's different speakers from India, from Singapore, from the US. They all kind of flew in to sort of impart their knowledge to inspire these people. And the whole conference was in a sports arena, which was huge, right? I think there were about yeah, about 2 or 3 thousand people. But I think the hunger to learn is what I got out from a lot of these markets, right? Because they want to compete on a global level. Obviously, they've seen work from the One Show, which is one of the global award shows, whether it's the Cannes Lions. They also want to stand tall, and the ability to, I mean, their hunger to learn sort of helps them to be able to be open to adapt. I think sometimes when I speak to a lot of creatives in very developed markets, everyone seems to know it all, right? Or there seems to be a sense of proudness that maybe they don't need to learn. But actually speaking to these other places, I think they really would. They're soaking in the information. They're really hungry. You could tell after when I speak, the questions they ask are very sincere and very authentic at the same time.
Amazing. That must be such a journey to see so many different markets and that are yeah, emerging markets in the creative industry must be a fun part of your exploration, and you must be something that they can teach us maybe as well. Is there anything that you brought back that are some insights that are helpful for creativity in very established markets as well?
I mean, everywhere I go, every culture, every country, every person I meet is always a learning, going back to basics. Because, whether you're a chief creative officer or you're creative chairman or, whatever titles or how many years of experience, actually, when you go with a learning attitude, with a sense of humility and being humble, it's really important to be able to connect with people because nobody wants to talk to someone who is too who's too big to answer. Maybe sometimes to them is to us is silly questions, but to them it's a really important question. So I think we really need to look them in the eye and really I think really we need to pull our I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, when we grow in terms of our experiences, our our job titles, we start to be proud in terms of what we think we will know. But having experienced different countries, they are everyone's got a different culture, and that rich culture actually helps them to set them apart, but also to bring something richer in their creativity if they do learn and adapt and grow and hopefully show the rest of the world how creative they can be.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful. And again, what comes out of it, or that what we all draw from in the human storytelling is our experiences and our culture and where it all comes from. So you know, which is kind of bringing this whole full circle, go on how we're looking at human creativity, with our riches of different technologies and tools that we can use to express them in so many different ways. And but it all stems from that human storytelling and how we relate to each other and how we can tell each other stories that resonates in different ways. I'm coming to an end here. I've had such a good time speaking to you. If you could impart one message to young creatives out there about balancing technology, traditional creativity, and get started with their career, what would that be?
For me, one of the things that I do tell young creatives is stay curious all the time. And instead of having, data-driven, AI-driven creative, is to have human-driven creativity. So coming back to what we just discussed, right? Human storytelling, human, intuition and insights, adding that humanness in everything they do is really important. Again, let me repeat, right? Because adding the humanness adds to the to be relevant and relatable. Because, when we create art, right, it can be highly conceptual and too original. And sometimes, clients might not accept that. So for young creatives, very simple, right? Stay curious, keep things simple, and have human driven ideas.
I love that. What better way to end our time together, Guan? I'm going to bring with me amplified imagination as well. That's going to be a top banner for me when I wake up in the morning and get to work. I think that's a beautiful part of it. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? I mean, we're going to post your book. Everyone can read that in the show notes. What are the channels that you are sharing your wisdom with us?
I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and a bit on Instagram, but LinkedIn will be my most important channel. So reach me on LinkedIn.
I follow you. That's how I found you, through some shared contacts. And I saw that you express a lot of interesting ideas there. And I really enjoy following you on your journey as you're traveling around APAC and spreading the good word about human creativity. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to have AI Anna read us out from this episode of Makes You Wonder. I've had a great time. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day in Singapore. I'm going to go to bed soon, but it was really nice to connect with you.
Thanks for having me, Oskar. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching and listening to Makes You Wonder. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a solid and hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. For extra karma, please share with your mom and your friends too. Makes You Wonder is made with love by Wondercraft, the AI audio studio for brands and creative teams. It's hosted by Oskar Sarander. You can find Oskar on LinkedIn, X, and Threads. Links in show notes. This episode was produced by Alex Hughes Morgan. It was edited by Zaina. A nice young man named Dimitri from Wondercraft was the executive producer. Learn more about Wondercraft at wondercraft.ai.